They gave me 48 hours to rip out my mom's ramp or they'd lean my house. Names, Jordan Price. I'm a high school counselor, part-time drummer, and full-time oldest daughter to Evelyn, who's got a fused hip, a stubborn streak, and a laugh that scares crows off the fence. We moved her into my little blue bungalow on Magnolia Court last fall because the hospital stairs were starting to look taller every day. I saved for months, drew a plan on graph paper, and built a front porch ramp that matched the trim. Non-slip, gentle slope, handrails, smooth as river stones. Not a janky patch job, this was clean. I pulled a city permit, paid the fee in cash, and waited the 2-week backlog like a responsible nerd. On March 20th, the inspector, Mr. Soto, stamped it permit number 3287-H. Approved for a residential accessibility ramp within setback. We took a photo him with the stamp. Me cheesing like I just won a raffle. I slid the permit copy in a sheet protector and taped it inside the hall closet. Proof. I like proof. Then the letters started. First one came in a cream envelope with a logo shaped like a pine cone. Which? Okay. Cute. Unapproved exterior alteration. It said, remove by Friday at 6 p.m. Fines of $100 per day will accrue. Signed by HOA President Karen Delaney. Cursive so tight, it could crack. I checked the date twice. It was Monday. That clock felt like a hand on my neck. I emailed the board. Attached the permit, inspection photo, and a one-pager I printed from HUD about reasonable modifications under the Fair Housing Act Title 8. Section 804, subsection F, paragraph 3, letter A. Plain English. You have to let disabled people modify their homes so they can, live. I was polite. I even said, happy to paint the rail to match, if that helps. At 7:42, a life, M. The next morning, Karen replied from her iPad. The footer bragging about her realty license. Your request is under review. The ramp violates Aesthetic Guideline, Section 5.3, Uniform Front Elevations. Please plan to remove by Friday at 6 p.m. To avoid further action. No hello. No thanks. Just a time bomb with a smile. Receipt 1, the city permit. Highlighted in neon. Printed again. Because emails, you know, can accidentally fall down a hole. Mom listened from the couch, knitting and not missing a stitch. Baby, she said, ramps are how we get to church and back. They ain't fashion. She tugged the yarn. I'll bake a pie. Bring it to Miss Karen. See if butter helps. Save the butter. I said, we're gonna need receipts. Wednesday afternoon. Karen landed on my porch like a fairy godmother for fines. Tennis visor. White skirt. Clipboard. She didn't touch the rail. She did, however, pull a pink tape measure from her tote and click it across the boards. Lips pursed. Jordan, she said. We protect property values by protecting uniformity. I looked past her at Unit 4, where a giant metal rooster guarded a patch of fake grass like a mascot. Uniform. I echoed. Right. I showed her the permit. She didn't look at it. This isn't about value, I said. It's about my mother being able to get through the door. Karen tilted her head. Accommodations can be made at the rear of the home. The rear is a slope into a drainage ditch. I said, Emergency crews would hate it. Also, the back door is 2 steps narrower. She wrote something. We'll see what council says. Then she tapped her watch. Friday, 6 p.m. Clock's ticking. Cool, cool. They went petty first. That's the playbook. A bright orange hanger appeared on my knob. Final warning ring camera. It claimed my doorbell created a chilling surveillance environment. Which, it's a doorbell camera. Ma'am. Funny thing is, that camera had captured Karen the night before, measuring the slope and muttering, "We are not a rehabilitation center." 2. Nobody. I downloaded the clip. Saved it to a folder labeled Ring, March 22nd. And dropped it on a thumb drive. Receipt 2. A newsletter blast hit inboxes titled, "Let's Keep Magnolia Court Beautiful." Stock photo, family smiling like they've never scrubbed a toilet. Down at the bottom, Q. What if a resident has personal needs? A. Off-site resources are plentiful. Off-site. As in, take your disabled parents somewhere else. I ain't gonna lie, I saw red. Then, a compliance assessment came by regular mail. Hand addressed like a birthday card. It dinged me for unauthorized potted plants, 3 lavender buckets, non-conforming blue trim, same color from the HOA pamphlet. Swear. Visible medical equipment, mom's foldable wedge pillow airing on the chair. And the ramp. Pending removal. Total $280, due by Friday at 6 p.m. Cashier's check preferred. The invoice font had the same pine cone. Receipt 3. I took a photo of every pot, trim chip, and pillow. Printed them with timestamps. I also printed a page from our CC&R's covenants, conditions, and restrictions, Section 9. Paragraph 2. Nothing herein shall be enforced in conflict with applicable law. Yellow highlighter. Big arrow. Thursday. 2 dudes in navy polos showed up with a wheeled clamp device and a vibe that screamed. Somebody told them they were law. Neighborhood compliance. The taller one said, tapping a laminated badge. I asked who employed them. He said, the board. I asked who authorized wheel clamping. He produced a document in tiny font that looked like it had been assembled from clip art and vibes. My doorbell caught all of it. Set that down and step away from my car. I said, steady. City code prohibits private immobilization devices on residential driveways. I may or may not have read that the night before at 2 a.m. The shorter guy whispered. She recorded us. And they retreated, leaving a neon hanger that said, final warning, vehicle storage. Receipt 4 video file, titled, Clowns with Clamps. Sorry. Petty label for a petty move. I called the city building and safety line. On a recorded line, Ms. Tam Nguyen Angel said, a permitted accessibility ramp is not a cosmetic feature. It is a functional accommodation. Private covenants cannot force removal without cause. We'll send a letter. She followed up at 4:19 p.m. with a PDF on city letterhead that said exactly that. Receipt 5, Municipal letter. Date stamped. Friday at 5:57 m. Gravel crunched. They came with people and props. Karen, in a pastel blazer. 2 compliance guys, back again. Now in cheap vests, stenciled with the word enforcement, like a Halloween costume. 3 board members I'd seen only at cookouts, when the soda ran out. One had bolt cutters. Another had a clipboard, thick as a hymnal. A white SUV idled at the curb with neighborhood safety vinyl on the door. Karen didn't bother with hello. "Time's up," she said. "To avoid liability to the association, we're removing the structure." Mom was in her chair inside, crocheting. She can hear better than she lets on. My nephew, Theo, 8 years old, dinosaur t-shirt, peeked from behind the curtain. Eyes big. I stepped to the top of the ramp, heartbeat in my throat, but voice flat. "Touch this ramp, and you're trespassing," I said. "Also, you're on camera from 3 angles." I gestured at the doorbell, the porch cam, and Mrs. Addison's driveway cam, across the street. "Please smile natural." Karen raised her chin. "We have authority." She snapped her fingers at bolt cutter guy. I lifted a letter. "City of Westbrook. Building and Safety." I read, loud enough that neighbors' doors cracked open. Letter dated today, 5 p.m. Signed by Acting Director Tam Nguyen. Removal of a permitted accessibility feature without owner consent may constitute interference with a protected modification under federal housing law. I held it so the notary stamp caught the porch light. The 2 vest boys hesitated. Karen did not. "Cut it," she said. Voice like a lid clanging shut. I said, "Mom, hit it." Inside. Mom pressed a button Theo had rigged on an old key fob. Our porch bulbs shifted to a soft pulsing blue, and the security siren chirped in short bursts. Not police, just a scene. Theo labeled Family Alert. But the sound pulled folks from living rooms, like the ice cream truck. Miss Addison crossed her arms. Mr. Ortega put down his rake. Even the rooster at Unit 4 looked judgmental. I held up my phone. Under the Fair Housing Act Title 8. I paused. "Sorry. Let me say this plain. You cannot punish or stop a disabled person from modifying access to their home when it's reasonable and permitted. Your aesthetic preference does not beat federal law." A few snorts of laughter. A cough. Someone whispered, "Tell it." The neighborhood safety driver took a step back. "We ain't trying to get sued," he muttered to Karen. "We were told to assist, not to cut into a city-permitted thing." He slid into his SUV and left. Vest boys followed like tumbleweeds. Karen stood her ground like a statue. "You are making a spectacle," she said. "There's residents who value order." "You mean residents who value comfort that looks like you?" I shot back, then corrected. Fast. "No. I'm talking power, not faces. Your order leaves my mother at the curb." Karen's jaw worked. Board meeting Tuesday, 7 p.m. "Bring your paperwork." She turned, perfume floating, and marched away like the sidewalk owed her applause. I brought paperwork and a projector. The HOA meeting lived in a beige room with fold-out chairs, a humming projector, and a flip clock that clicked like a metronome. Agenda copies at the door, in 12-point font that said nothing while taking up space. A donation jar for landscaping enhancements sat next to a bowl of butterscotch candies. Neighbors filled seats. Curiosity, annoyance, and church potluck vibes. Karen stacked papers at the front. Vice President Brent khakis, boat shoes, practiced a neutral expression. Treasurer Paul looked like a man calculating insurance premiums in his sleep. Secretary Lila smiled with her lips, not her eyes. I set a binder labeled RECEPTS in thick Sharpie and plugged in my little thumb drive. When the floor opened, I breathed through my nose, looked at Mom in the aisle, and started. Slide 1, Permit 3287-H. Photo of Mr. Soto stamping. Approved March 20th. I said. Inspected. Documented. Slide 2, HUD guidance. One sentence highlighted. Housing providers must permit reasonable modifications when necessary for the full enjoyment of the premises. That means ramps, I said, and door wideners, and sometimes railings. Not a vibe check. Slide 3, our CC&Rs clause. Nothing shall be enforced in conflict with applicable law. I let the silence do some work. Slide 4, Karen, measuring the ramp at night. The rehabilitation center comment, captured by my doorbell mic. I didn't gloat. I just let the audio play for 7 seconds. Pop. An older man in row 3 winced like he'd swallowed a lemon. Slide 5, the orange hangers. The compliance assessment. The $280 in fines. You charged me for lavender because it wasn't on a list. I said. You charged me for a pillow drying in the sun. I held up a photo of Mom's wedge like it was contraband. It's foam, not a billboard. Slide 6, the municipal letter. Big seal. Big words. Big truth. Receipts laid out like a picnic. Cops not necessary when sunlight does it. Karen tapped her pen. Thank you. Jordan, our counsel will advise, she said. Chin high. We must protect uniformity. Exceptions invite chaos. Magnolia Court is not a hospice. Murmurs. A woman in the back said, That's ugly. Then the door opened, and City Inspector Soto walked in. Polo tucked. Hair silver at the temples. Folder in hand. He nodded to the board. Sorry for the delay, he said. I came to clarify. The ramp at 114 Magnolia Court is permitted. Removal without the owner's consent could violate municipal code and invite liability. He looked out at the neighbors. And whoever built it did good work. Safer than most. The room breathed out. Even Treasurer Paul's shoulders dropped a notch. Karen countered fast. We can require placement at the rear. I clicked to a diagram of my parcel showing the drainage ditch and grade. Rear is unsafe, I said. EMS would hate it. A retired firefighter in row 2 nodded. Slow. Miss Addison stood. She smoothed her cardigan like armor. My late husband used a cane, she said. We should not be making people beg for basic dignity. She sat down. Cheeks flushed. Eyes bright. The board's attorney, a man who looked allergic to sunlight, cleared his throat. The association must engage in an interactive process to accommodate disabilities, he said, like he was discovering decency in real time. Aesthetic concerns do not override statutory obligations. He blinked. We, could be sued. Karen's smile sharpened. Motion to require removal, pending council review, she said. Lila blinked. Second. Lila did not second. Silence. Then Theo's voice. Tiny but brave. From the aisle, my grandma calls it her bridge. Sometimes it takes a kid to cut through the fog. The vote wasn't clean. Power rarely gives up neat. Karen tried to table. Failed. She tried to jack fines to $1,000 per day to encourage compliance. Treasurer Paul flinched like someone had stepped on his spreadsheet. Our carrier warned us about discrimination exposure, he muttered. Our premium could triple. Receipt 6. An email from the insurer flagged urgent. Saying exactly that. I slid a copy across the table. I didn't write it, I said. They did. Karen brought up the neighborhood forum on the projector. A post with my name circled in red. Certain residents exploiting loopholes. We must not become a care facility. Then, a second plate readers would stop outsiders. Outsiders, ma'am. I live here. Receipt 7, screenshots with timestamps. Because delete buttons are fast. A hand shot up. Mr. Ortega plate. Readers without a vote. No way. A chorus of yes. Folks are cool with safety until it stares back at them. The lawyer leaned in toward Karen. They whispered like teenagers. He straightened. I advise granting the modification as built, requiring paint to match, and adopting a clear accommodation policy going forward. He swallowed. Also, maybe remove those posts. Karen called the vote. On the motion to order removal, she said. Eyes on me. All in favor, 2 tentative hands. Opposed 3. Crisp. Motion failed. Applause bubbled like seltzer. Not a parade, more like relief, with a pulse. I didn't whoop. I said into the mic. Thank you. I'll paint the rail to match by Saturday. I'm also happy to share the plan for anyone who needs it. Karen shot back. This board will not be bullied by theatrics. Right then, the side door opened, and Officer Priya Shah stepped in. Calm as Sunday. She scanned the room, saw me, gave a small nod. Evening, she said. We received a complaint about the impersonation of security and a threatened removal of a permitted structure. I'm here to take statements and to remind everyone that private associations are not exempt from criminal laws. The vest boys from Friday hovered in the hall. One started explaining to the officer before she asked. We never cut anything, he blurted. Hands up. The lady yelled law words. Officer Shaw's body cam blinked. She looked at Karen. Ma'am, did you authorize contractors to remove a structure? Karen's lips thinned. We sought to mitigate liability. By cutting a handrail, Shaw asked. Okay. She took notes. Calm. Polite. Iron underneath. Receipt 8 incident number scribbled on the back of a folded agenda, 23752. After the vote, it didn't just end. Because nothing ends when pride is driving. Saturday morning. My mailbox held a special assessment notice for legal consultation costs related to non-compliance matters, $40 per household. You get punished. Then billed for the stick they used. I snapped a photo and dropped it in the neighborhood group chat with the caption, Did y'all approve this? People woke up. Mr. Ortega was first no. Miss Addison, absolutely not. A younger neighbor, Kay, who works nights at the hospital, chimed in. I'll bring coffee to a recall meeting. Receipt 9, a screenshot of residents telling the board, nope. By noon, Karen sent a blast email with the subject, correcting misinformation. It claimed I'd installed a structure without approval, refused reasonable alternatives, and incited harassment. It also claimed the ramp could attract liability from scooter traffic. Scooter traffic. Like children, I read it twice and laughed out loud. Then I highlighted the 3 biggest lies and replied to all with this, please see attached permit, city letter, and recording of last night's vote. Receipt 10 reply all. With attachments. Sunday. A handbill appeared on Door's Community Safety Survey. It floated the idea of installing license plate readers at both entrances to track non-residents. The word non-residents did a lot of heavy lifting there. Folks side-eyed it hard. Monday morning. Mom had physical therapy. We rolled down our bridge, yeah. We call it that now, and Miss Addison waved from her porch, thermos in hand. "Need a ride?" she asked. I got a van. We were okay. But I ain't gonna lie. The offer landed warm. At noon, the city attorney's office called. They'd received a complaint from the HOA about my defamatory actions. The assistant on the line, voice like fresh paper, said, "We reviewed your paperwork. You're fine." We did, however, forward the matter to the State Fair Housing Unit. They'd like to speak at your next meeting. Receipt 11, email confirmation from the Fair Housing Unit. Stamped 107 p.m. Offering education or enforcement. The board tried one more hardball, a compliance walk. They scheduled volunteers to stroll the block with clipboards, looking for sins. My porch got flagged for unauthorized lawn signage. The sign, a little wooden welcome plaque Mom painted that said, "Come as you are." I took a photo. Posted, "Is kindness off palette?" The replies came fast. Put me down for a sign. Me too. By Wednesday, at least 10 porches had the same phrase in hand-painted letters. Different colors. Different crookedness. It looked like a chorus. Receipt 12 collage of 10 welcome signs. Printed and slid into the binder like a quilt. Wednesday night. The board's lawyer sent an invitation to mediation. I agreed. Anytime after school hours. I wrote, "I've got kids till 3. We met Thursday. Folding table. Lukewarm coffee." He said the word uniformity 8 times. I said the words interactive process 9. Karen said order like it was a saint. At the end, the lawyer wrote a draft policy that actually made sense. Request. Meeting. Decision timeline. Appeal. Paint to match if reasonable. He slid it across to Karen. She didn't touch it. Receipt 13. Draft accessibility and accommodation policy. Version 1.0. Then, the smear posts escalated. Someone, under a username that rhymed with Marin, wrote that I'd threatened volunteers with police, and that Mom was often seen walking unassisted. Sir, no. She takes 3 kitchen steps with a walker and grit. That's not unassisted. We had video of her nearly falling last month that I didn't share because dignity matters. I kept it that way. I did, however, post a photo of her physical therapist's note, with her name blacked out, stating mobility limitations consistent with need for ramp. Receipt 14 PT note. De-identified. Friday. The special assessment got walked back in a sheepish email. We are pausing the fee while we evaluate community feedback. Translation, you got loud. Then came the town hall. The City Fair Housing Unit offered a speaker named Ms. Lark. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, warm voice. She opened with a slide that said, Fair Housing Act, what it is, what it isn't. She kept it simple. Trash cans behind fences, that's an HOA thing. Access for disabled folks, that's a federal thing. Don't mix them. People actually laughed. Then listened. She never said Karen's name. She didn't have to. She took questions. Brent asked. Can we require the ramp to be hidden, she said. You can require reasonable paint if it doesn't hinder use. You cannot require someone to go around back, if around back is unsafe. Paul asked about insurance. She said, denying lawful modifications is a great way to spike your premiums. Lila asked about process. She said, write it down. Post it big. Use words your grandma understands. Receipt 15. The slide deck printed with permission. 3 staples on the side, because I ran out of 4. During open comments, a younger neighbor named Malik stood, palms sweaty, voice firm. I deliver groceries for folks on this block, he said. That ramp means I can roll a cart right to their door and not risk a fall. This is not just about one family. He sat down to a small burst of applause. Then a curveball, an older man who usually walked in circles around the block said, I voted for strict rules to keep the place nice. I didn't vote to be cruel. My wife needed a handrail last winter because of the ice. If you'd told me a handrail was dangerous to values, I'd have laughed in your face. He shrugged. I'm laughing now, but I'm also mad. Karen pressed her lips so tight, I thought they'd vanish. When she finally spoke, she went for the jugular. This is a coordinated campaign to undermine board authority. If we allow 1 ramp, we allow 10. If we allow 10, buyers will think we are a care facility. A hand shot up, and Kay said, buyers with hearts might like that. A few claps. Someone coughed. Ms. Lark closed it down gently. Uniformity is not the highest good, she said. Humans are. She gave Karen a smile that was not quite a smile. And for those worried about resale, the market supports neighborhoods that don't trend in the news for discrimination. Receipt 16, a page from a Realtor Association brief that said exactly that. Recall talk went from whisper to plan. Neighbors gathered on my driveway with folding chairs and Costco cookies. We kept it calm, clean, and lawful. We read the bylaws. We tallied the signatures needed. We drafted a petition, in straightforward language. We, the undersigned, call for a special meeting to vote on the removal of President Karen Delaney for cause misuse of authority, failure to follow law, and conduct unbecoming. We left out the adjectives we wanted to use because restraint reads better on paper. Receipt 17, petition. Names redacted in the copy I kept in the binder. Because privacy, Karen tried to stop it with process. Petitions must be on board-approved paper, she wrote, and submitted between 9 and 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. That's not in the bylaws. Lila, to her quiet credit, replied all. That is not a rule. Signed petitions can be delivered to the management office during posted hours. Small cracks. Light. Meanwhile, Mom baked lemon squares and insisted on cutting them into perfect little diamonds for morale. She wore her church hat while she sliced. I feel useful, she said. Don't take that from me. I kissed her forehead. Then, maybe cried a tiny bit in the pantry, where nobody could see. Theo made recall day stickers with a drawing of a ramp and a tiny crown. He handed them out like confetti. Grandma's bridge, he said. And folks grinned. Receipt 18, photo of Theo's sticker page. Date at the bottom. In his messy hand, April 10th. Special meeting day landed warm and windy. We filled the beige room again. The flip clock clicked like a countdown. People lined up to check in. Lila and Paul ran the table with a seriousness that felt like service, not control. Karen stood off to the side, whispering to Brent. She wore a navy blazer and a look that could cut fruit. We stuck to the rules. Lila read the recall statement. Karen was offered time to respond. She used it to say, I have given countless hours to this community, and we must all sacrifice for the common good. And also, this campaign is personal and cruel. She didn't apologize. She didn't mention the ramp, except to call it divisive. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. People had their own stories now. A vote by secret ballot. Volunteers counted at the front table. Whispering totals. Double-checking. The room hummed with low talk and a smell of coffee and butterscotch candy. Mom squeezed my hand. Lila cleared her throat. On the question of removal, she read. Ayes 52. Nays 31. Motion carries. It didn't feel like a win I wanted to gloat about. It felt like a fever breaking. There was applause. Sure. There were also a few people with arms crossed so tight their elbows might never relax. Karen stood very still. She blinked rapidly, then gathered her tote and left without a word. Brent followed. Then came back and sat quietly, like he'd lost a map. Receipt 19, the signed meeting minutes. Posted 2 days later. With votes tallied in words and not just numbers, because words make people read. The work after the flip matters as much as the flip. We adopted the accommodation policy the lawyer drafted with teeth. Clear steps. A promise to reply within 14 days. A guarantee of an appeal. With a resident advocate present. Paint to match, where it doesn't hinder use. No rear-only nonsense unless a resident asks. We posted it big at the pool house and on the website, in a font you don't need young eyes to read. We set up a mobility fund with the leftover legal line and a donation from the insurer $5,000 to start. A contractor who lives on Birch Lane volunteered discounted labor. A teenager offered to build ramps for his Eagle Scout project. Mizzen. Lark sent flyers about rights and responsibilities we could hand out, like recipes. We refunded bogus fines. Folks came to the office with crumpled notices in their pockets and left lighter. Paul kept saying, "I'm sorry." Like a metronome. And the more he said it, the more it sounded like a real thing. The plate reader's idea died a quiet death. In its place, we printed bright little signs that said, "Drive like your neighbor lives here." And they worked better than a machine that never waves hello. As for me and mine, we painted the rail to match the trim. Theo picked the shade by holding up chips in the afternoon light. "Comme dust," he said. And Mom nodded like an art critic. We sealed the wood, added little reflective dots for night, and called it done. Mom rolls down in the morning, sits with her tea, and tells Theo stories about her first apartment over a laundromat where the washing machine sang all night. One evening, the sun slid low and the street smelled like the first cut of spring grass. Mr. Mannertain Ortega came by with a walker he'd borrowed for his sister. We adjusted the height, tightened the screws, and talked about how you don't know you need a thing until the day you need it, and then suddenly, it's the only thing that keeps you safe. Receipt 20. A simple thank you card from a neighbor on Birch Lane. Your policy helped my mom. We didn't know what to do. I saw Karen once more. At the grocery store. She was in the cereal aisle, reading sugar counts like they were secrets. She looked smaller without the gavel, and the visor, and the audience. I don't hate her. I hate what power does to a person who thinks it's theirs by default. She looked up. For half a second, I saw something like relief flicker across her face. Like maybe stepping down had loosened whatever had her by the throat. "Jordan," she said. "No perfume. Just paper and cornflakes." "Karen," I said. "You doing okay?" She pressed her lips. "I thought I was protecting something," she said. "Turns out I was just protecting a feeling I liked." She put the box back. "I still think the neighborhood needs order." "Me too," I said. "Order that makes room, not walls." She nodded. I was wrong. Soft. Real. She pushed her card on. Mom and I rolled past the checkout with tea, lemons, and a pack of sticky notes. At home, I wrote tiny labels for the tool bin so Theo could help without guessing screws, glue, sandpaper, hope. He laughed at the last one. Silly, he said. Then he stuck it on his shirt like a name tag and ran outside to ride his scooter down the sidewalk he now understood wasn't just concrete. It was the hinge of a little world. Later, under the porch light, I flipped through the binder one more time. Permits, letters, screenshots, minutes, notes in Mom's careful hand. We hadn't needed every page, but stacking proof had built me a spine when my stomach was doing flips. Receipts are not just papers, they are anchors when somebody with a clipboard says your life is a nuisance to their brochure. Our bridge glowed faint in the evening. A neighbor strolled by with her toddler and stopped to chat. A delivery guy used the ramp to bring a package and didn't have to risk the steps. A stray cat took a nap on the bottom plank because warmth is warmth no matter who you are. I don't know if Karen will ever like my ramp. I don't need her to. I need my mother to get to the couch without fear, to the porch without help, to the car without grit teeth pain. I need Theo to see that rules are tools, not weapons. I need neighbors to know that uniform doesn't mean we all pretend we're the same. So, what would you do if somebody tried to cut your bridge down? Would you bake a pie? Print a statute? Call a meeting? Or, all three? I'm not judging. I'm just saying this. Bring your receipts. Bring your people. Bring your voice, and your breath, and your stubborn, ordinary love. It's enough.